freaking awesome. Jane Stathas is an awesome freaking loan officer. I've had the benefit of knowing her for over 20 years. This lady is absolutely incredible. You cannot come close to beating her. She's actually taught me more in this mortgage business than so many other people. One of the things that she taught me was it's not necessarily in your best interest to have 10, 20, 15 loan officers. That if you know what you're doing and you have an operations support staff behind you, you can do 7 figures pretty easily. Now, with that being said, Jane is a freaking awesome loan officer. Jane, thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me interview you today.
Thanks, Johnny.
All right, we've got a set of questions that I'm going to go through, and I just want off-the-cuff, impromptu answers, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, here's one that I know part of it, and I know a lot of it, but unless somebody's ever been around you, the Texas tornado, they may not know about this. So from your standpoint, what makes you stand out from other loan officers?
Well, I'm tall. No. I would say probably I'm just extremely dedicated to what I do. I'm just a regular human being. I like to treat other people the way I want to be treated, which is what my father always taught me to do. And I don't know if that's what makes me stand out or not, but that would be my feelings on it.
I know one thing in my mind that makes you stand out from others is, in my opinion, and I want to know what you think on this, you're not a transactional loan officer. You actually get to know and value and care about each one of your customers. That is so different from most loan officers in today's business. And I don't know if it's because of your history of being a real estate agent, owning multiple companies, doing things like that, but I know that you know your customer better than most any loan officer did. Matter of fact, one thing that I can say is I look forward to my birthday every year because I get the greeting from Jane Stathas calling and singing me happy birthday. I love interacting with Jane Stathas because even though I don't have the discipline, I still know that I'm going to get a handwritten card from Jane Stathas. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be a Jane Stathas customer. What are your thoughts?
Well, one thing you did mention, I truly do care about my customers. And I like to get to know them. I like to embrace them, know things about them. And I do stay in touch with them. And I guess the big thing is I care about them. I don't like to, I can't operate when they're just a number. And I just don't know who they are. It makes me go crazy. And I keep all my customers. I have customers that go back all the way to, I think about 2011, before I may have had like a computer crash or something. Maybe even farther back, I would have to look. And I save all their info. I have what's called a cover sheet that I start when I get a file. And it's got a lot of my notes on it. So when a customer calls me and says, I just have them like that. He says, hi, my name is, Mike, and I don't know if you remember me. You closed us back in, 2012. I quick jump on my computer and I pull up 2012 and I open it up and, I have his last name, of course. And there's all his info. Go, well, great. How's Mary doing? And all this stuff. He goes, oh my God, you remembered me. It's little things like that that you have to try to hang on to and save, because honest to God, I don't remember who they were. A lot. I mean, that far back, I'm not really remembering unless they were such a crazy customer. How could I forget? But a lot of them you can forget. And those little cheat sheets, I call them cheat sheets. And, if they have a little boy, oh my gosh, your little boy, how old is your little boy right now? Oh my God, he was 3 years old. Now he's 11. Little things like that make people feel good. I do keep a key contact birthday list. Now, that doesn't include my customers, although we get a notification when it's somebody's birthday, and I do love that. I do love that. That is provided to us. But I keep that for all my friends. I make notes of, like, if somebody died, I make a note that that's the day they died. And then a year later on that day, I'll send a little note saying, I remember your father, your mother, and I know it's a sad day for you. And just little things like that. I like to remember people that way. And I like to do that. It's just what I like to do.
Now, that's definitely one of the things that sets you apart in my mind from anybody else I've ever met, anybody else I've ever known in this business. And it's got to be an amazing feeling being a Jane Stathas customer. There's no question.
I hope so.
So you just said something a second ago that kind of leads us into the next question. You said you get the reminders of your customers' birthdays. So what piece of technology do you love using that's provided by Hancock Mortgage Partners?
That's one of them that I love because it reminds me, and the customers are so touched that someone remembered their birthday. I always get a little email back that says, thank you for remembering. How are you doing? And then we start a conversation again. So that's probably my biggest tool. I just love because once again, it relates to me and what I like to do with people. So I appreciate that. I'm being constantly reminded it's somebody's birthday. The other tools, believe it or not, this is funny. It's something you created and developed, and you have a lot of the branch managers and LOs getting on doing little videos every day. And I absolutely love following those. Quite frankly, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. If I want to do that, we can talk about that off the record, but I find it just truly fun to, watch them. It's like a little, the little, who's the guy that travels around the world eating food, different food? What's his name?
Bourdain.
Yes.
Anthony Bourdain.
That's what it reminds me of, like you never know where they're going and this and that. It's really cool. I like that.
I agree. And I do think that you're ready. And I do think that you're probably one of the bravest human beings I've ever met in my life. So you do need to do that. All right. So this one may not apply to you directly, but I still want your answer on this one because you've done business, I hate to say the old-fashioned way, but you've done business different than today's, let's say, modern marketer does business. And this one's really important to me, and I want to know what your answer is, and I think other people need to hear what your answer is. What changes are you going to do to increase leads for you and your referral partners in the next quarter or in the next year?
Well, for one thing, I just met with, on Monday, I met with my biggest realtor who gives me my built-in business. And we got together and we went over all his leads till we got tired out. And we went over each one and we decided, what are we going to do with this one? Do you need to call him or do I need to call him? Or this is what I needed from that customer and they never gave it to me and I gave up trying. Can you see if you can get them to give it to me? So we manually went through customers and leads. And we went through I think we went through a good 75 to 100 of them. And that's something I like to do because it gives me a chance to, visit a little bit too with my realtor. And of course he brought his wife with him. And so that's always a big thing for this realtor. His wife loves to hang out with us. So she came along and had a cup of coffee while we were doing our thing. That's one thing that I like to do with the realtor, meet with them, go over these leads, because I keep records of who they're giving me. And it's like, hey, we've got like 10 people here. What's the deal? What's their deal? Why aren't they buying a house? Did they go somewhere else? Do I need to shred them? Or should I keep them because they're still looking? And it's amazing some of the answers I get, because a lot of them are like, wow, I can't believe you remember all these leads, because some of them they quite frankly forgot about them. And one other thing I do is sometimes I'll pull that realtor's file out, I open it up, and I'll give them one email from me, and it'll say, hey, I was just wondering, where do we stand on these people? Because they were, pre-approved. And I'll put, the name, and I'll put, this is the last note I made on them, that they were working on saving their down payment, or they were doing this or that, whatever. And here's their email and their phone number. If you want to follow up with them again, might not be a bad idea. And I'll do maybe 7 or 10 of them, and just to keep following up. And that's another thing I do that is, I guess, call it old-fashioned, but the good old way is what I've done. The other thing is when it's a customer that doesn't really have a realtor yet, then I stay on top of them. In fact, I had one yesterday, and it's a bummer that he doesn't need a realtor because he's doing a FSBO. He already knows the house he wants. And this kid was so afraid to give me his info to pull his credit because I just don't have any credit. I said, give it up. Just let me pull it. We argued back and forth. Finally, he goes, okay. He was all bent out of shape and everything. And he's already done it. He's self-employed. He did his tax returns. I've looked at them. Everything's good. And I said, come on, the next step is that credit report. So I pulled it yesterday. Lucky us, we had 2 FICO scores, 665, FHA, perfect. The guy's got like 40,000 to work with, which is, you don't even need to put all that into it. But so I was so excited. I worked up all the numbers. I called him back. I go, you sitting down? And, we went over it. And now he's my best buddy. And he was actually referred to me by another customer who's a FSBO guy. And he told me, he said he's been working with me for quite a while, only because he's not ready. But he doesn't want to let go of me, and I'm not letting go of him. So sometimes, they say, oh, if they don't buy within a certain time, just trash them. I don't agree with that, because I've had people that I've worked with for a year and a half, 2 years, on and off, and all of a sudden, bam, there they are. And it's that extra deal you didn't think you would have that now you have,
I've said it before and I'll say it again. You are definitely one of the most successful loan officers I've ever known, I've ever met in my life. And I think that's one thing that separates you from the others, is that tenacity. And then also what I can see is that that nurturing, that fact that you will help. For some reason, human beings have an impossible time making decisions. And you have that nurturing combination between mother and school teacher, to where you are going to do whatever is best for them. And if they're kicking and dragging the whole way, it is in their best interest, and you actually help them understand that when they make their decision.
Exactly. That's true, because and Kelly reminds me a lot of that. She's very nurturing that way.
Agree.
I see that in her. And some of the others, I don't see that at all. They're cold. Just, I see it. I feel it. And some of them just have that extra little, I don't know, fairy dust, call it what you will.
I agree. And I think that's one thing, obviously, that separates you, is the difference between relational and transactional.
Right.
All right. Now, here's one for you. I think I know this one, but you may throw me completely off on this one. What do you love most about being a loan officer?
The money.
Yep, you threw me off on that one.
Hey, if I could make this much money riding horses, I'd be riding horses, okay?
I agree. One thing that I do want to hit on, in case this makes it to the cut, is the fact the reason that you're being interviewed is because you are that incredible. You are that awesome. But I want to say that there are probably, and if I had to guess, for every one of your caliber, there is probably 30 or 40 that are nowhere near, that they're less than transactional, and they could not cut it. They actually aren't qualified to carry your purse for you, as far as I'm concerned. So when you say you're in it for the money, I hear you, but I don't believe you, because I see what you do, especially for your first-time home buyers.
Right. You know, no, the one thing I do love about being a loan officer, and it almost transitioned itself from being a real estate agent when I got so sick of dragging people around in the cars. And this is before the days where you could have them look at a million homes online. This was the day when you had to throw them and their 3 screaming kids in the car and go look at, 5, 6 houses, and you had mud all over your Lincoln, and you had, whatever. After 10 years of that, it got a little old. And, Steve had started in the mortgage business as well. And then I kind of was like, I kind of like this side of it. And quite frankly, the one thing I learned, and this is an odd thing, I worked for 3 years for builders. And then from there, when the market was I could see it crashing down. I said, I got to have freedom here. So I got my real estate license, and I took customers only to new home construction, Pulte, MPC, D.R. Horton, all the builders. And those were the only things I would show them. If they wanted pre-owned, I referred them out. I wasn't going to get into that at all. It was strictly new construction. And the reason I loved it was because when I sat at these builders and a realtor brought a customer in, and of course, many of those realtors were useless in my opinion, and I would have to take control, get up, show them the houses, get them all excited, we'd write them up, and then on Monday when the builder's lender pulled the credit, they're like, they can't buy, their credit is bad. And I'm like, well, this is a waste of time. So when I decided to finally leave and get out of sitting behind a desk like that, getting paid what I was getting paid, knowing what I could make as a realtor with all the bonuses the builders were paying when the market got horrible, then I got my license and I started showing, new construction. But before I took them out, I found myself a good loan officer. And she was like top of the line. And she would get them pre-qualified before I got them in my car. Because one of my biggest mentors said, if you're in the business to taxi drive, you don't care who you're dragging around. If you're in the business to sell a home, you're going to get them pre-qualified first. And I never forgot that. And so when I would take them out, I knew they could buy. But what I found really funnier yet, when I would walk into a builder, I had my favorite peeps, and I knew where we would end up and what we would buy, but I had to show different areas, salespeople I didn't know, and I called them ahead of time, hey, I'm coming in, I'm going to show you this, boom, boom, and these people wouldn't get off their butt. They'd say, here's the key, go look at the spec. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so all my little wheels are always turning, so you kind of learn a lot about sales and how you sell people. You don't sell them by sitting on your butt without engaging with them. You have to engage with the customer. And so even though with a loan officer, in today's world, you tend to not be in front of people anymore. They don't want to be in front of you. They want to do everything on social media, text you, phone, everything, email. But jumping ahead, when I finally decided I liked the numbers end of it better, because that's what my whole point was. I would go to loan application with my customer so that the loan officer, I could ask a lot of questions I knew my customers wanted to ask, but they were afraid to. And I would go to loan app with her. And our deals were solid as rocks all the time. But the more I did it, the more I started getting so involved in the number end of it. I said, wow, I need to be on that end, because now I'm tired of driving people around. So that's how I fell into the mortgage part of it. And I think that's what I enjoy about being a loan officer is I love putting a puzzle together. I love the puzzle pieces, fitting it, making it work, what's not going to work, what is going to work. And that's what I like about it. And like, you know, a lot of loan officers, when they're trying to sell themselves, and sometimes, believe me, I have to sell myself because they're telling me, well, I went to BOA and I went to this lender and that lender and they're going to give me this. And I said, you know what? I'm not Neiman Marcus and I'm not Walmart. Okay. I'm kind of like Dillard's. I'm kind of like in between there with my rates. I said, but my service is definitely Neiman Marcus. And I said, and you can reach me 24/7. You're not going to reach that BOA guy after 5 o'clock. His phone's shut down. You're not going to get him on a weekend at 7 o'clock at night. These are the things that I can offer you, and I'm going to get you closed, and I'm going to get you closed on time. And there's going to be no surprises. And I said, I get so many loans referred to me from other realtors that said, oh, my deal blew up because they insisted they had to go there, and I tried to keep them with you. We did our best, and now they're back because it blew up, just like I told them it would. I mean, some get lucky and it doesn't, but not many. And so you have to just sell yourself. And sometimes I find customers just like to argue. They really don't. They just argue to argue. So I'll just keep arguing with them.
I think a lot of that's human nature for some reason. Again, I think it goes back to that human beings are impossible to make decisions.
Right.
All right. So here's one. And one thing I do want to hit on real quick and just so tell me what year we're talking about, because I don't think anybody in the world would believe this. What year are we talking about from the time you were a realtor and taking people to the builders? What year was that?
Well, that was 1986, but I was working for builders in 1982.
Okay. That's what I was saying, because when you said crash, your vision of crash, you've had more views of it. You've seen it more than once, where so many people in this business, I got in this business in 1994, and in reality, I've only seen one crash. You've had the benefit of seeing others. And when people see you on this video and they see that you're 45 years old, they are not going to believe that you have seen more than one, especially the crash in the 80s. So I just want to get that point across, that you have more experience than most anybody watching this video right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that I've done in the past that really helped me get to to where I am now. That you learn something from each job that you do. And I mean, I even remember with the builders, we were selling arms 12.5, 14.5, 16.5 fixed. I mean, those were rates. Those were high rates, not 5%. Boy, that's horrible. It's not horrible. You know, it is what it is.
Agree. I get a kick out of it right now when we know that interest rates are going to go up. We know that interest rates have to go up. There is no choice. It has to happen. The one thing that I get a kick out of is every time it seems to make a tick from 3.5 to 4, hearing people say, I'm going to wait till rates go back down. And now that we're sitting at 4 going to 5, I'm going to wait till rates are going back down. And seeing inexperienced loan officers, this is one of my favorite ones, is inexperienced loan officers calling around or posting and asking, hey, what are your rates? What are your rates? Thinking that we have different rates, because in reality, we all have the same rate within 0.25% of each other. And if you're trying to find the very best rate, there's one guy in the country that has that. And by the time you find him, he doesn't have the best rate anymore.
I know.
But in reality, everybody has approximately the same rates. All right. So here's something that I know that you can help. And I want you in your thought pattern to think of a Kelly Rice. Do you have a tip or advice to help other LOs?
Tip or advice? Work hard. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't be working your life away." I give up a lot to do what I do, and I have given up a lot. I've given up being places I want to be. I've given up being on vacations, and I know those are all important, but I kept my nose to the grindstone. And you have to do that, and you have to keep yourself educated as to what's going on in the market.
Thank you.
You have to know when there's changes being made, because that's a great opportunity to tell all your realtors, hey, did you realize this? Hey, did you realize that? Those are great ways to make a realtor say, man, this lady knows a lot, And the other thing is to take the time and explain things to customers. I've heard it more, almost every customer. They said, you know what I really like about you? I like that you take the time to explain it in plain old English, what this means or that means. Sometimes they get the initial fees worksheet and they're like, I don't even understand what this is. And I keep things simple for them. It's like, keep it simple, stupid. That's what you got to do. And, I'll break things. Sometimes when I can see I'm not getting through, I'll say, okay, this is all you got to know. This is your interest rate. This is your payment. And this is your down payment. These are your total of closing costs, your prepaids, your total move-in, minus your earnest money. This is what you need. Can you live with that? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm good. So you have to educate your customer, because the more educated they are, the less afraid they are, because it's their first time. Even second time buyers, it might have been 10 years since they bought a home. You know how much has changed since then? I mean, amazing things have changed. So that's my big piece of advice, is to stay educated, keep your customer educated, and talk to them like a teacher. I guess, teach them what they're facing, I guess.
Awesome piece of advice. This next one is completely self-serving. This is 100%, but it was put together by your colleagues and your peers. So I have agreed that I'm going to ask it. What do you love about working at Hancock Mortgage Partners?
Well, you, for one thing. Of course. I'd follow you to the ends of the earth. And I like that, Myatt and Keith, they're genuine people. And all the people that work there at corporate are genuinely nice people. And you can pick up the phone and call anybody, and they'll either answer or call you back. They're willing to, that brings up another piece of advice. They're willing to, break their back to get things done for you. And that's the one thing that I've always instilled in anybody who's worked for me. I said, if Keith approves something and he's letting something close with something missing, he never has to worry that it's not going to be there like I promised. It's on my tickler calendar, and believe me, I'm going to follow up on that until I die, because it's going to get done. I'm not going to leave it hanging. And that's a big thing with following through with things. You have to follow through. You can't just talk and then not follow through with things. So that's another thing I love about Hancock is they allow me, plenty of rope, but in return, I make sure that I don't hang anybody either. And the one thing I wanted to jump back on with the bit of advice to loan officers, in Microsoft Outlook, you have that beautiful calendar, the tickler file. If I tell a customer, okay, we can't do anything right now, okay, your scores aren't there. I've looked at the report. This is what, I think if you did this, work on paying these down, blah, blah, give them a little bit of advice. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to call you probably the week of May 15th. And guess what I do when I hang up? I go to that tickler file and I put that in there. Boom, boom, boom. And I call them and they're like, wow, you remembered. I said, of course I remembered. Why wouldn't I remember? And then I do that even with things pertaining to my loans. If I know I'm closing a loan next week, Wednesday, I'm counting backwards going, wait, the verbal VOE, I don't care if the processor is supposed to do it. I'm going to make sure it's done because I don't want to be sitting at closing and the processor goes, oh gosh, I forgot to do it. And then we got to wait for funding. I don't leave anything to chance. I make sure everything's done. That's just what I do. I just don't hope everybody's going to do it for me. I do a lot of stuff myself. Awesome. That way I know it's done. You need to let go. Can't let go.
The Outlook calendar. I mean, that's on everybody's machine. You do not have to be a tech guru to use it, but it makes all of the difference in the world.
It does. It does.
What is the one obstacle that you've had to overcome as a loan officer?
In my whole career?
Anytime. This week, this month, this decade, anytime. Tell us something interesting. Tell us something that you've had to overcome to do the job that you do today.
The biggest obstacles I've had to overcome would be having worked for lenders that don't know what they're doing and having to overcome everything that's blowing up left and right and smoothing everybody's feathers. That happened at prior lenders I've been at where, oh boy, warehouse lines weren't cleared. You know what I'm talking about. And people are screaming at you and managers from builders are screaming at you. And those were the biggest obstacles. There were times that I almost just, walked because it was getting bad. So that would be my biggest obstacle is having worked for lenders that didn't know what they were doing. I don't get that with Hancock Mortgage at all.
Agree. Been there, done that myself. I know the answer to this one, but I'm looking forward to hearing it from you. The reason we asked this question is it's kind of funny because everybody seems to have ended up in the mortgage business by accident. I never remember hearing anybody in my whole life when I was growing up saying, God, I can hardly wait till I'm an adult and I can be a loan officer. So, did you always want to be a mortgage loan officer? And if so, why? If not, what were you pursuing before you did this?
Well, I had my own real estate company. So no, I didn't always want to grow up to be a loan officer. I always wanted to grow up to make lots of money. So prior to that, I had a real estate company and I really had hoped to develop it, to be a big company. At one time I had about 9 realtors working for me. And that was my first lesson. And boy, they drain you. They drain you. They drain you. It just, like I said, I just kind of started falling over to that side of the numbers part and the financial part. And I was doing a lot of loan officer questions to my customers as a realtor. I had a little sheet of all these, what's your income? What is it, W-2? Are you 1090? I mean, I was sitting there going, why am I doing real estate? I should be on the other side. And of course, I thought the money looked like it might be better too. And it was. The money just exploded. So, and once again, I mean, I kind of veer where the money's going. It's like, okay, let's go here. The money's better over there. And it's got to be something I like doing, and I like doing it. So it was kind of like a stepping stone into the mortgage business.
I want to ask you a question completely off that has nothing to do with this, and we may use this footage, but I want to ask you a question. So you've mentioned money 2 or 3 times in this interview. It's something that means something to me also, and I know why it means something to me. To me, it means something because I grew up poor. We weren't destitute by any means, but we definitely grew up paycheck to paycheck. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to find something. I remember for 7th and 8th grade, I had one pair of jeans and I washed them every night. So that was one thing that stuck with me forever. Is that any reason? Was that part of why you wanted to be successful?
No, my family they're all overachievers, my whole family. My father was an extremely hard worker, never even finished high school. My mother was a stay-at-home mom that raised 5 kids, but we always had a really nice house. I mean, not extravagant by any means, just a nice average house. We had just strong family. Everything was overachiever. And I have to honestly say, in my family with 5 kids, they all went to college and finished, and I did not. I got probably 2 years under my belt, and I just quit. And then I struggled after that. And when Steve and I moved to Dallas, and I was trying to pursue the same line of work I was in, which was the advertising business. And, there's we'll pay you, like, I don't know, $30,000 a year. And I'm like, So, actually, Steve kind of got me pushed in a direction. I was bored. I couldn't find a job right away here in Dallas. And he said, why don't you just like work for one of those temp agencies? You have a lot of like typing skills and administrative skills. And I ended up at Pulte Holmes Lender. And they would put like stacks of files on my desk, and I'd have it done in an hour. They're like, oh, what about the rest of the day? I go, bring me more. I got, I was always like, run. Well, then on Mondays, when the salespeople would come in, they would have like, 5, 6 contracts. And I go, how much money are you making on that deal? And I started adding it up, and they're telling me they're all making 6 digits. And I'm like, oh, I'm on the wrong side of the fence. So I asked them if I could go be a loan officer, work on site. And they thought I had all this mortgage experience. I didn't have any mortgage experience. And so they go, yeah. So they put me out there. And from there, my first year back in 82, I made like $80,000. So for me, that was like, my eyes were popping out of my head, because I went from making like $25,000 a year to that. And that was huge. It was huge. One week I sold 12 homes in a week.
In 1982, $80,000 was as close to $1 million as you could get.
It was huge. I mean, so no, I just am. I've always been an overachiever. I've always wanted really lots of good stuff, and I just wanted. I mean, to me, if you have money, you can do all the things you have passion for. But if you don't have the money, it's hard to do the things you have passion for.
Agree. It's in your DNA, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, I guess so.
What is one piece of advice you would give to someone looking to purchase a home, whether it be a first-time home buyer, whether it be a move up, a move down? What's one piece of advice you would give to somebody today looking to purchase a home?
Two pieces. One, buy what you love, because obviously they're not going to buy something unless they love it. But not to buy over your head. That is almost like I used to do net sheets for them and show them, this is how much money you need to have left over to do things. You don't want to be a slave to your house. That's, I guess, my piece of advice. Don't be a slave to your house, because then the house you love is going to be the house you don't love anymore. You're going to hate it because it's causing financial struggles. So always buy. And it's something Steve and I have always done, because we've always been commissioned people. We always bought 50% of what we could really buy.
I think that's some of the soundest advice I've ever heard. I've heard for years, don't be house poor. And what house poor means is you go into these neighborhoods that are amazing neighborhoods, regardless what the price point is, and find the house that doesn't have any curtains, that the yard goes 2 weeks without being mowed, that has the oil stains in the driveway because we can't fix the car, things like that. So to me, I appreciate you saying that. I've lived by that myself, and I think that's one of the soundest pieces of advice you could ever give to someone buying a home, and I thank you for that one. So here's my gotcha question. This is my Bryant Gumbel moment to try and jerk a tear out of your eye right here on camera. One thing that I have had the benefit of that not everybody in this company or in the audience that's watching this has had is I've had the benefit of being, as far as I'm concerned, as close to being in the Stathas family as you can get. I know that you have an amazing husband, an amazing child that you were so incredibly blessed with. I hate the word "that's your why," but tell me about your family. Very few people on here realize how many years you've been married, that you have a child, that he's an amazing human being with a law degree, working in the real estate business. Give me a few minutes on that.
Well, I was one of those people that got married young. I was 24, Steve was 27. We've been married, it'll be 40 years. And we're both still alive. We haven't killed each other yet. We're both very motivated people, I should say. Let me put an adjective in front of that, money motivated people. And we are hard workers. Nobody ever gave us anything. In fact, one of the cutest things, my dad at one point said to Steve, if you ever, need to get a loan, I could give you a loan. And he looked at me and says, "Hey, Pa," he says, "I'll tell you something. When I need money, I'm going to ask you for $100,000. My dad I thought he was going to give us like $5,000, to help us out. But we struggled and clawed and did everything on our own. Nobody, like I said, nobody gave us anything. We just worked hard, worked together, and there was a time where, we switched roles where I'm always working. Steve was stay-at-home dad. He worked out of the house doing, maybe selling cars, buying and selling cars, this and that. But he was always there for our son, making sure he was coaching all his games and going on these trips that I was in that business at the time when it was busy, and I couldn't leave to go on a lot of this stuff. So he was always there with him. So as a husband and wife team and a father and mother to our son, we really worked hard to give our son the best. And my son, of course, is 31 now, and he went to a St. Mark's High School in Dallas, which was a very, very prestigious high school. Back when we went to the orientation, they asked where his brother was that was coming to the school. My son goes, "It's me," this big honking guy. And then my son went on to Cornell, and after that he came back and went to law school. Then he was placed in different places. His degree is in government, and his law degree is in oil and gas. And he lives in Denver now, and we couldn't ask for a better kid. Steve and I always say, and more Steve than I, he said, you look to see what's happening with all these tragedies out there, and it all comes back to the parents. And he feels, I'm sure there's cases where no matter what a parent does, there's a kid that's got a screw loose, but the majority of them, it's how they're raised. And fortunately, we have a wonderful, wonderful son. You know, we have good families behind us. You know, a lot of them are gone. And, you know, we are blessed. We have a very good life. We're blessed. We like to have fun. You know, Steve is Greek, so everything is large for us. Everything is large. We're trying to downsize. We go from 7,000 square feet to 47. That's downsizing. Hello. But, you know, he likes life large. We live life large. And, you know, good food, good times. That's our life. That's our life. I'm happy with it.
I appreciate you taking time out of your day for this. Thank you very much. And I absolutely adore you.
Oh, thank you. Same here, Johnny. All right. Bye.